Join us for a night of science and UFO mystery as we welcome R.L. Poole, author of the recent #1 Amazon bestseller, Beneath a Haunted Sky, The Evidence for Alien Abduction, for his inaugural lecture on his Einstein Who speaking tour, brought to you by Bang Productions TV, with special guest and host, John Edmonds Cosma. Along with being a best-selling author, life member of American Mensa, and a revolutionary amateur theoretical physicist, R.L. is also a 40-year veteran of the phenomenon known as alien abduction. His unique perception and insight, combined with his experiences, make him a compelling speaker, a clear leader, and a powerful advocate in the modern movement for alien disclosure, introducing a new era of enlightenment through his unique understanding of the topic of extraterrestrial visitation, abductions, advanced technology, physics, and exopolitical strategy. Hearing R.L. Poole is like listening to the future. April 27th, 7:30 p.m. at the Whitaker Center Cinema. Do not miss this watershed event, which will change the way you see science, the way you see humanity, and possibly even the way you see the world. Get your ticket to this once-in-a-lifetime experience at the link below today.
Hello, my name is R.L. Poole. The name of this lecture tour is Einstein Who, a provocative title to say the least, but it perfectly encapsulates the scientific conundrum in which we find ourselves at the current time. One of the ways in which this is expressed is on the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials. The reason I know this is because I have had direct experience, which you will both see and hear about during this presentation. But this experience has shown me just how far we are behind the learning curve on what is perhaps the most important topic facing the Earth today. Before we get into it, you need to know the accounts are true. The photographs are real, the drawings are accurate, and the conclusion is undeniable. We are not alone. We have, after all, I'm sure, heard the phrase, "this defies the laws of physics," in an almost accusatory way toward the phenomenon being referred to as UFOs and extraterrestrial visitation, as though we are offended that nature disagrees with our arbitrary interpretation of it. We are in awe that we are wrong. I find this highly amusing, but treacherous to navigating reality. This is Dr. Shirley Wright, who was Einstein's assistant, and who gave an interview, just one, in 1993. She was witness to Einstein being invited to see the Roswell crash of 1947 at what was referred to as a crisis conference. She was given a security clearance to accompany Albert Einstein as one of his entourage, which makes a lot of sense. If there were a crash of an alien spacecraft, you would most certainly want the world's smartest physicist to see it. She relayed that there was a being which survived the crash that communicated with the scientists. Her description of the beings matches the same description of the gray people which I have encountered. According to her report, there were 9 beings involved in the crash, but only one of them survived. She says that this being not only answered questions, but asked us questions as well about our capabilities, such as what our best systems are for exploring our oceans or how far into the galaxy we have penetrated. Upon receiving the answers to these questions, she said that this being was very quick to let us know that we didn't know anything. She added that it did not menace them or threaten them because upon hearing our answers, they recognized that we were drastically, intellectually, and scientifically inferior. Curiously, the Albert Einstein Foundation said they have no records of Einstein's whereabouts on this particular date. The most renowned physicist of the 20th century had to stand there and not only see a craft which both defied and surpassed his best science, but also heard directly from the beings themselves that his best ideas were honestly remedial and that we know nothing compared to them. Not only did the world's smartest physicist hear this from the beings themselves, but was also a personal witness to a craft which destroyed his physics with its abilities and its mastery of science. You see, Einstein's model does not allow us to have any power over gravity. Right now, gravity only has power over us. So when physicists who are educated on Einstein's models say that it is not likely that extraterrestrials have come to this planet, I'm pretty sure the extraterrestrials would answer back, Einstein who? Why? Because we trap ourselves in the box of our own science, and anything that challenges the narrative is rejected. This is at the heart of what limits our potential. We must be bigger than that. We must be better than that, because that is how we will evolve as a species. The denial over the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrial visitation is met by science with some of the most ironically uneducated rebuttals that it reveals itself. I have sincerely heard scientists say things like, there's no way aliens could ever make it to our planet because rockets don't go that fast. Limiting the possibilities in the universe to what meager human beings can do is not scientific. It is dogmatic. We must remember that our technology and our science is still in its infancy. We are only 200 years out from the Industrial Revolution. You're driving a car that is based on the same technology as the Model T. No one teleported here today. You're watching the same screen. It's just flatter. No one has a holographic television. Most of what we have done, which is productive for society in tangible ways, are really just streamlined versions of what we already had decades ago. It is simply recycled science. Why? We've made some mistakes along the way, obviously. The problem that science, more specifically physics, has made is that once something is established, it becomes nearly impossible to dislodge it from the psyche. This is the definition of dogma. But where's the beef, right? Where's the evidence that what I'm saying is true? Let's examine that, and you can see for yourself. In short, the problem which keeps us from understanding the phenomenon known as extraterrestrial visitation is gravity. See? Because we do not understand the workings of space-time at any practical level, it is beyond our comprehension how that could be accomplished by another species. Therefore, this causes denial. That is science in a nutshell right now, when instead, if something defies the arbitrary laws that we have naively placed on nature, we have a wonderful opportunity to correct what is a flaw on our part, not on the part of natural phenomenon. We keep trying to make things we do not understand fit into a box in which it does not belong, and have intellectually painted ourselves into a corner. Remember, laws are just flaws no one has given an F to yet. They are only true until broken, which is exactly what Newton anticipated and left room for in his philosophy of reasoning. So, the question I pose to Einstein, and every physicist after him, is why haven't we applied it? It's time to unravel this back to its origins and begin doing just that. Newton's observations and calculations were based on the idea that objects appear to fall in a straight line as though they are being pulled down toward the center of the planet. From inductive reasoning of this observation, he postulated that there was a force acting upon the apple which changed its previous behavior. This is correct. Sort of. If we simply stopped right here and got no further, it is still the greatest moment in the history of science. He ran his inductive reasoning out too far, though, when he decided upon the direction of application of force and its attribution as being a force at all, let alone one uniquely separated from other forces. This is a bridge much too far, considering modern data. Newton breaks his own logic by claiming gravity is a force, but provides no equal and opposite reaction to this force to support this assertion. He breaks his own rule in order to facilitate his explanation, and not a single person seemed to realize it. However, at the time, this was revolutionary thought, and like Einstein's relativity model, it dazzled and shook the pillars of science for the time. While both did some exceptional work in certain ways, it cannot be ignored or argued against that basing brilliant work on a flawed premise will yield misleading results. It is possible to be right about something without knowing why, and this is where we find ourselves presently, isn't it? We can calculate curvature, but neither Newton nor Einstein, even Hawking, are able to tell us why. Even the late Stephen Hawking himself said that we do not understand gravity or its principal role in the universe. His intellect, unlike others, was balanced with humility. Transversely, we have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson who make the claim that I can land something on Mars, so I think I understand gravity pretty well. But is that a true statement? Or a statement perhaps born out of an overly inflated ego? Or is it even ignorance about what it means to truly understand something? From one of the most televised and quoted astrophysicists of all time. Well, how do we know when we understand something? It is through the demonstration of that understanding which proves it to be so. Look around you. Look at the lights and the screens and all of the things which are operated by electricity. We can generate electricity, we can control electricity, we can manipulate or guide electricity. We demonstrate, on at least some level, our understanding of this source of power, one of the four fundamental forces of the universe, the electromagnetic spectrum, and we have harnessed a tiny amount of it. Good for us. Now, apply the same standard to gravity. Can we do any of those things? Can Neil deGrasse Tyson or any other physicist on this planet generate gravity? Can they manipulate gravity? Can they control gravity? Can they defy gravity? Obviously not. If it were so, we wouldn't be building rockets, which singular purpose is to fight against gravity at great cost and great human risk. We are again streamlining the same ideas from decades ago because our science has not allowed us to progress beyond it. We are still doing the equivalent of putting people on top of a firecracker, lighting the fuse, crossing our fingers, and sending them through the air to touch the heavens. After spending $97 billion on the effort, we can't even get people back to the moon, a feat we did 55 years ago correctly the first time. How is science failing to replicate the accomplishments of what we were able to do 5 decades ago? We just got a lander back to the moon, but even that arrived clumsily and tipped over upon landing, just like the Japanese attempt. This is because we are trying to control an object to compensate for our lack of control over the forces it is susceptible to. Does that make sense? We do not understand gravity at all. Why is this so important? Well, because gravity is the foundational principle for the whole of physics, and even the greatest minds of all time have not been able to crack that code. The reason is because they are all forced to view it through the Newtonian and Einsteinian lens. So let's take a look at that. Addressing the original topic and using the concepts of inductive and now deductive reasoning, we must look at Newton's work again, free of Einstein's influence and the underpinnings, to get at the true origin of this principle. Newton made an immortal observation. He saw an apple fall from a tree and decided that there was a force acting on the apple that made it behave differently than all the rest. This is brilliant inductive reasoning, but let us look what happens next. He claims there is a force acting on the apple, which makes it appear as though it is being pulled down in a straight line toward the center of the earth. At this time, Newton had no idea what was at the center of the earth, nor could he be precisely certain regarding the direction of the force being applied, nor could he determine a causation for the force he observed. The direction of movement does not guarantee the direction of force. Logic dictates that a pulling force and a pushing force in the same direction can be nearly impossible to distinguish from each other when the action being observed is intangible. He made a guess in this regard, and my research into this shows that he was wrong on this count. We must not judge too harshly, however. Genius is often held prisoner by circumstance. Newton appears to be a man whose perception was ahead of his time and was trapped by a lack of contextual data to bolster his findings. Do physicists really want to argue that a 22-year-old man in 1665 with no technology, no instrumentation, and relying solely on inductive reasoning got this entire concept field theory correct and it needs no revision? This is a glaring oversight caused by what I call math blindness. Because Newton's and Einstein's equations work at some level, namely the macro, their explanations are seen as valid. However, this forms a philosophy of science which can lead us into an intellectual cul-de-sac. When we overlook something so important, it amputates our freedom to reimagine for effectiveness. Just ask yourself, is there anything else from 1665 which has remained exactly correct right out of the gate and has never changed? No, just the foundational principle upon which all physics is based. Sure. For instance, Newton had no instruments to verify his findings and had no way of verifying the direction of the force being applied. In fact, we still don't. Therefore, Newton determining the action being classified as a pulling force is simply a guess. It's a coin flip. And this is one of the major flaws which must be addressed. Gravity is not a pull. Gravity is a push. Gravity is the buildup of space-time around a mass. Space-time pushes down on mass from all sides for eternity. This is why everything, if given enough time, will become round and dense. The shape is determined by the constant outside pressure of space-time, which is perpetual, and motion. Between these two aspects of the universe, the only shape that anything in the universe can make will be round, given enough time. Even calling it a force breaks Newton's own rules. A force requires energy. Since Newton could not identify an energy source for this action, it is a misnomer to address it this way at face value. He meant it in only the most crude of ways, that gravity appears to make things move, which were once still. So if gravity were a force, it would need to be caused by something, a catalyst. This is where Newtonian and later Einsteinian physics break down completely because they have no idea. Also, force is action. According to Newton, every action creates an equal but opposite reaction. What action precipitates the force of gravity? They say that mass creates gravity, but mass is not an action, is it? Again, they are correct, but don't see the whole picture. What Newton didn't know, and what Einstein knew but didn't think of, was that there is action. Several, in fact. We spin, we rotate, we are hurtling through space-time at 69,000 miles per hour. We have 7 different types of celestial motion. Our mass and our movement dictate the disturbance that is created, the displacement of space-time that is made, and the extent or g-force which is applied to said mass. I'll give you an example of how this misunderstanding gets perpetuated in modern times. Consider the so-called Einstein rings, which have been reportedly found by the James Webb Space Telescope. Physicists claim that this bolsters Einstein's assertion that gravity can bend light. But again, this is a total misunderstanding of what we observe. Consider that light is traveling through the medium of space-time. Consider that space is not the absence of matter, but the presence of energy. Even Einstein refers to space-time as a tensor field, which denotes energy. This is how light is able to travel through it. Gravity bends space, with the catalyst being matter, which proves that space itself is a form of energy. Now, light travels through the medium of space, and gravity bends space-time. So it is not really light that is being bent, it is space-time which is being bent, and light is simply traveling in a straight line through this curvature. It is the scientific equivalent of saying that pipes bend water. No, water always thinks it's traveling in a straight line. So does light. Gravity does not bend light, it bends space-time, and light is simply traveling through it. It is these types of misunderstandings which hinder us from understanding how another species might use these forces in order to do what we currently find to be impossible. Our science must be addressed so that we might be able to better understand the science behind extraterrestrial craft and those who occupy them. Our science must be corrected before we can even have the leaders in science recognize the phenomena which is happening on this planet every single day. The fact that unidentified, anomalous, and uncatchable phenomenon are occurring on this planet on a daily basis is being reported, recorded, and disseminated, and still not recognized by science is a testament to how truly lost in some ways our science is. And I mean even beyond physics. The concept of science itself has become so warped that it has become unjustifiably hypocritical to the point of prejudice, especially in its study on the subject of UFOs. By science's own standards, when it comes to proving the existence of UFOs or extraterrestrial visitation, you would not even be able to prove the existence of lightning by the same standard. Don't believe me? Consider this. How do we know lightning exists? We've witnessed lightning, yes? We've also witnessed UFOs on this planet. We've taken pictures of lightning. Well, we've taken great photos of UFOs. We have beautiful videos of lightning. We also have undeniable videos of UFOs. There are people who have been struck by lightning. Yeah, well, there are people, of which I am one, who have been abducted by UFOs. It's a perfect parallel. You might be thinking, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Yet another unbelievable, illogical argument, which comes from Carl Sagan of all people, which is based on protecting the dogmatic thinking of the culture. Let me burst that little bubble from you. There are no extraordinary claims. There are just claims. There is no extraordinary evidence. There is simply evidence. How far down the evidence trail can we possibly go before we say this is a real phenomenon? Everything we have in evidence about UFOs and extraterrestrials tracks with how you would prove the existence of lightning. Are physicists now going to become lightning deniers? It makes you wonder. When we are experiencing the effects of an uncatchable phenomenon, we must use different standards for recognizing it than we would tangible and obtainable physical evidence. They are clearly using unreasonable and impossible standards for this phenomenon, which we would not apply to anything else, which is dogmatic, problematic, and ultimately hypocritical. This total lack of reasoning exposes the dogmatic nature of science and the problems it poses in recognizing, acknowledging, and confronting the subject of extraterrestrials. These physicists, which include even scientists I like and admire very much, like Michio Kaku, are demanding the wrong kind of evidence, have established no scientific baseline for this subject, and are reduced to spitballing anything that comes their way which threatens their limited view. Michio Kaku says he needs an alien body or a piece of a craft. Yeah? How about a cup of sunshine while I'm out? A bouquet of lightning? Anything else which is uncatchable but obviously has proof of its own existence I can get for you? We do not prove the existence of the intangible or uncatchable the way we prove the existence of the tangible. Yet another unbelievably obvious flaw of logic on the part of science. And in general, UFOs might as well be lightning, right? It is a temporary, uncatchable phenomenon which occurs above our heads but is witnessed and experienced by millions of people on this planet, of which I am one. As you will see and hear about a little later, I have personally witnessed our own military being unable to catch this craft, these types of craft. So if the military cannot catch them, what chance would any of us have? When a scientist tells you the evidence which is required, but not a single one of them has a method for collecting that evidence, we are being trolled by science. It is that simple. It really is. And when scientists demand evidence for things which they cannot provide for themselves, such as gravity, we are being subjected to the bully pulpit of science. We study what we want, not what is required. We accept things without evidence, like how gravity works, but not things which have an enormous amount of corroborative evidence, like the concept of UFOs and extraterrestrials. This is proof that dogma is what occurs when intellect loses objectivity. I'm going to stop the lecture here for now, but I hope that you enjoyed this preview of the Einstein Who lecture tour, and that you will like, you will subscribe, and you will share these thoughts and this information to help spread the message that you are not alone. Thank you for being here. This is R.L. Poole.